Hi, I'm Stella, 17, female. Now I'm studying at high school and living on the outskirts of the city in a small house with my parents. I know I will get a lot of hate when I tell this story. And yes, I deserve it. I'm not looking for any validation or forgiveness. I know I'm a piece of human trash, but I just need to get this out. Actually, I had a sister, let's call her Tiffany, who was for years older than me. She had suffered an accident since the age of 7 that forced her to be in a wheelchair anytime she was out of bed for more than 9 years. She couldn't use his hands that well either. She couldn't go to school. We used to have a good relationship and happy childhood until I turned 12 and she was 16. And I really started resenting the amount of attention she took from my parents and how much stress she put them under. At that time, my resentment for her was at its peak. I was a hormonal teenager with my own issues. But due to her health and her needs, my parents had to devote all of their favors to her. I wanted for nothing, but for all intents and purposes. I craved the attention and love to the point where I full of hate her. My parents were busy working hard. Moreover, they always expect me to be my sister's caretaker when they grow old and eventually die. For me, she was like a big burden. But I love my parents, as they had worked very hard all their life to support this family. So I had to constantly help her, change her, and feed her. And I hated it. There were a few years in her life when she was so mean, acted like a baby to my parents, and it really made me resent her more. So I decided to stop hanging out with her and spend more time making more friends at school. I even told my family all the fun I was having at school. During dinner, to make her feel bad, I started barely talking to her or acknowledging her presence. She would get frustrated to the point of tears. To get my attention, it started escalating when I would purposely turn off the Wi-Fi and unplug the TV every time we had to leave the house, so my sister could do nothing but sit in her wheelchair. I purposely deleted his favorite shows on the DVR. I made fun of her speech, pushing things just out of her reach. I would act disgusted when I had to change or bathe her. It always made her feel bad and she would apologize to me. I made my own sister apologize for taking a dump. I don't know why I acted like that, even though I treated her badly. My fucking scent of a sister. Never told my parents, and she never let me have it. And it happened on that autumn day 5 years ago. My parents told me to take Tiffany to go outside for some fresh air and buy some things for them, by the way. Though I was tired, I still obeyed right away. While walking around, she was trying to talk to me non-stop. She asked me about my learning situation. How was my day? I'd just returned home from school full of tiredness and pressure, and I had to take care of my sister, which made me exhausted. I got irritated. She was annoying, and I was just ignoring her. Tiffany became quiet when I bought my parents some things. On our way home, she suddenly pointed toward a park bench and said that she wanted to sit here, stay outside a little longer. At that time, I was really tired and just wanted to go home as soon as possible. So I rejected it, but she kept saying that. I got mad, yelled at her that I could no longer stand her. Then I left her in the street, under the rain with an umbrella, and went back home. She called out as I had gone a few steps. I was so tired. By this time though, all eyes were on me. I didn't care, and went to quickly without looking back. Suddenly, a car came at a crazy speed, and there was a loud crash. I had noticed that someone was lying lifeless on the road, in a pool of blood, and the wheelchair was knocked more than 4 meters away. My God, that was my sister. She got hit by a car. When she tried to cross the street, I fell down, my brain whirling in panic. I knelt next to her, touched her, stroked her cheek. She had slowly opened her eyes, looked at me for a few seconds and closed. I tried to stay calm and cool my family in tears. I kept my fingers wrapped around her neck so I could feel the evidence of her life. I sat next to her, waiting anxiously until the ambulance arrived. While I was still at the scene of the accident, my parents went up to the hospital. It got worse when the doctor informed us that my sister had several broken bones, a collapsed lung, and bleeding in her brain. My sister had to get brain surgery instantly. My mother was crying out and my dad was going to faint. About me, I almost died when hearing those words. The doctor informed us she was being transferred to ICU, and we would have to come back in the morning. While we were waiting outside the door, my mom suddenly revealed to me the truth behind her accident. 9 years ago, she said my sister tried to save me from a car accident at that time, so her legs were broken and never got back. But my sister and my parents didn't want me to know about it, so they had been trying to keep it a secret for so long. I was shocked. Honestly, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I had done horrible things. My selfishness and jealousy ruined her life. Tiffany was willing to sacrifice her life to save me. And I was a bad bitch. My sister might be dying because of my stupidity. I stayed up that night, thinking about my sister's accident, and cried my eyes out. The negative thoughts were surrounding me, so it was a very long night for me, as if it lasted for centuries. I was drowning in fear, regret, and was a lost soul on that day. On the next morning, we came back and were told the bleeding hadn't gotten worse, but the swelling had continued to progress and a neurosurgeon was going to consult. They continued to monitor the swelling throughout the day, and we will be speaking to the neurosurgeon later this morning. Luckily, 2 days after, everything was getting better. My sister even awoke and could talk to us. I breathed a sigh of relief, thankful that she was still safe. Watching her on a sick bed, suffering so much pain, made me feel guilty. I couldn't even look her in the face. I was so ashamed. I realized now that I had no right to judge her, and I will never know how difficult life is for her. After 1 week of treatment, she finally got out of the hospital and arrived home. Then I wrote up a long-ass apology letter that I wanted to read to my sister. I knocked on her door, and she was so excited that it was me. I couldn't get through the first few words. I started crying after saying, I wanted to say I'm really sorry and just couldn't get through it. I just got into bed with her and laid down next to her. Tiffany hugged me really tight and said she was glad I was her sister and best friend. I couldn't even respond. I never cried that bad before. Why didn't I do this earlier? She just hugged me for a long time until I calmed down. We didn't talk much and she started crying for a bit too. It was the first time in a long time we just hugged. I couldn't remember. It seemed so long ago now. Apparently when we were very little, we hadn't been so close as now. After those days, I spent more time with her, took her to some places she'd never ever been before. We reminisced about the old things, about how funny we were together when we were just children. Perhaps those were the most beautiful memories in our life. Fun has not been long. A few weeks after, another sad news comes to us. Her condition worsened than I expected. Doctor said we need to prepare ourselves for the worst situation to come. My family was dead quiet for a minute, and the worst thing happened. I didn't think my family could handle losing another sibling. In the last moments of life, she just smiled, didn't utter not a word of complaint or blame. Life was too hard for her. My sister said goodbye to life forever at the age of 16. It was the biggest loss for my family. I cried so many nights, blaming myself for causing the death of my sister. I don't know when I became an evil trash human being. I wish I could put myself in her position, understand all the difficulties she'd been through for all those years. If this did occur, things wouldn't have reached this stage. I'm a healthy girl with no issues who chose to bully my only sister for something that wasn't even her fault. I'm so ashamed of myself. I have always felt guilty about how I treated my sister all these years. It's been a long time, and I cannot close my eyes without seeing her lying unconscious and unresponsive in that road. Deep inside, I am always begging for her forgiveness, even if I know I don't deserve it.